Hi, welcome back to English for Specific Purposes on Telescola. I'm Mr. Daryl.
And I'm Miss Tatia. გამარჯობათ, მე თათია ვარ. კეთილი იყოს თქვენი დაბრუნება ჩვენს ტელესკოლაში. Mr. Daryl, what is the topic of today's lesson?
Well, today we are talking about business once more, but another aspect of it, the crises aspect.
We're going to talk about crisis management today. A very, very essential part for the business, right? Okay, but I think that before we start the lesson, we have to look at our agenda. What's on our agenda today? Well,
we're going to do a little introduction, meaning a discussion, and it will lead to vocabulary and the reading text that we have. From there, we will move to an important part, the grammar section, and we'll try to summarize at the end and give you homework.
ჩვენი გაკვეთილი შესავლით დაიწყება, შემდეგ შევისწავლით ახალ სიტყვებს, ამის შემდეგ წავიკითხავთ ტექსტს, ამას მოყვება გრამატიკული სავარჯიშოები, შემდეგ შევაჯამებთ გაკვეთილს და დავასრულებთ საშინაო დავალებით. I think it's time to start the lesson, right?
Yes, we have a good lead-in question, Ms. Tatia. I wonder if you would be so kind as to answer it first.
Yes, of course.
What sort of crises do business managers have to face?
Oh, this is a very good question. And I think that if you are a manager, you have to anticipate all the problems that might emerge in the company. So the crisis might be caused by external or internal factors. So I think that we can mention some financial crises or some unrest in the country, or maybe war, or some fluctuation of the currency. So there might be a lot of problems, and I think that the managers and the company should be ready for any kind of crisis.
Very good. There might as well be internal problems as well. There might be staff problems and things that come up within the company.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And one more question. Can you think of any examples of a recent business crisis, and which do you think has been the worst in recent years?
Well, the best example probably is the pandemic that's going on around the world.
We are in the middle of the crisis.
Hopefully it will end soon, but it has put a stop to a lot of trade, movement, and meetings are now happening in a different way. Companies are behaving in a different way, and a lot of companies, unfortunately, probably are in a lot of trouble as well.
Yeah, they are struggling to survive. Okay. Now I think that it's time to move to our new words, and let's see what the first word is. And the first word is to anticipate. To anticipate is a verb, and in Georgian it means წინასწარ განჭრეტა. And how would you define that word in English, Mr. Daryl?
Anticipate, I would define in the following way: to imagine or to expect something before it happens, so in advance of it happening.
Yes. So anticipate is a verb, and in Georgian it means წინასწარ განჭრეტა. For example?
Yeah, we have an example. For example, the managers should anticipate possible crises.
Okay, they should foresee the crisis, right? Okay, our next word is action plan. Action plan is a noun, and in Georgian it is სამოქმედო გეგმა. Is this a plan you have prepared in advance to follow in case something goes wrong?
Precisely, that is a very good definition of the action plan. Could you tell us the example?
Okay. Don't rely on an individual to implement an action plan. He or she may be sick or absent on the day the crisis occurs.
Our next word is contingency plan. Contingency plan. What is the Georgian translation?
Contingency plan in Georgian is სათადარიგო გეგმა. So when you have an action plan, you should have also a contingency plan.
Precisely.
In case things go wrong, right? So can you define the words for us, Mr. Daryl?
I'd love to. It's a backup plan. It's a plan that if your action plan doesn't work, you have a backup plan
you have to apply to.
You apply it to make everything go back towards the intended direction.
Our next word is damage limitation. Damage limitation in Georgian means zaralis zianis shemtsireba. Okay, so when a crisis emerges usually or occurs, usually there is some kind of expected damage. So I think that the company should try to limit this damage. Am I right, Mr. Darrow?
Yes, perfect. The damage plan or the damage limitation will be used in the plan to sort of minimize the risks and the potential bad effects that might happen.
Okay. And our next word is, Mr. Darrell?
It's a noun. It's loss of confidence. Loss of confidence. What is the Georgian definition, Ms. Nadia?
In Georgian, it means endobis dakargwa. And I think that if a company fails to operate, maybe, or it might cause a loss of confidence.
Yeah, loss of confidence. It's kind of a loss of trust, a loss of belief that the company can do well.
So our next word is admission of liability. This is in Georgian, it means პასუხისმგებლობის აღება, პასუხისმგებლობის აღიარება, which usually if your company does something wrong, so you have to admit the liability, right? So what is the English definition for this phrase?
Definitely. It's when you get someone to admit responsibility, to take responsibility for something that has gone wrong. It's often in the form of a contract, or it might be in another form, but taking responsibility for something that's gone wrong.
Okay. And I think that we have finished with the words, and it's time for the exercise, which is my favorite part of the lesson.
All right.
I usually have fun. Okay. So please read the sentence, and I'll try to guess the right word.
Ms. Tatia, here it is. The management stated that a something was in place for dealing with such emergencies.
Okay, I can try. When some emergency occurs, you need to have a contingency plan.
Yes.
So I think that contingency plan is the right answer.
Let's find
check.
out. Yeah, you are right.
And I was right. That's nice. So contingency plan is the right answer. So the management stated that a contingency plan was in place for dealing such emergencies. Okay, now I will try. I will read the sentence and you will try, okay? So, minimizing the negative effects of a crisis is known as,
Well,
what is it known?
The key word for me is minimizing, and there is a synonym in the answer. It's got to be damage limitation.
And I think that you are right. Yes, minimizing the negative effects of a crisis is known as damage limitation. Okay, now let me try.
An acceptance of responsibility, Ms. Tatia, in a crisis is a...
And I know the answer. It is admission of liability.
Let's check.
And I'm right. So the acceptance of responsibility in a crisis is an admission of liability.
Well done.
Now I'll read a sentence for you. At this stage, we can't really, then a space, what will happen. So what do we call when you are trying to foresee what will happen? Yeah.
Anticipate.
Yes, you are right.
Oh.
Anticipate. So at this stage, we can't really anticipate what will happen. So we cannot say, we cannot foresee. Okay. Now I will try.
Yes, it's my turn to read for you. Following a crisis, a company may suffer a decline in loyalty from its customers, or an something in its product or service.
I think that there should be loss of confidence.
Let's check.
And I'm right.
Oh, well
Following
done, Ms. Tatia.
a crisis, a company may suffer a decline in loyalty from its customers or a loss of confidence in its product or service. So it means that the customers do not trust your product or your service anymore. Okay?
Perfect answering so far.
Okay. And the last one. Will you try? I will read the sentence.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. There are the main recommendations in the 22nd point. Then there is a blank space for trade liberalization.
Perfect. Well, the answer's got to be an action plan, particularly because of 22 points.
Yes. And we usually, there are several points in action plans, so it means that here we have 22 points.
Okay.
Okay. Well, and I think that we have finished with this part of the lesson, and we have to move to the reading part. But before we read a text, I think that we need to know some words, some new words. So let's look at our second set of vocabulary. And the first word we have is to scrap. To scrap is a verb, and in Georgian it means შეეძლებათ, გაუქმება. To scrap. And how would you define that word?
It's a good word. This is common in business when you dispose of or discontinue a plan that you had before.
Okay. So to scrap is a verb, and in Georgian it means შეეძლებათ, გაუქმება. And we have an example. They are considering scrapping the text and raising the money in other ways. Okay, and our next word is disruption. Disruption is a noun, and in Georgian it means chashla rghveva. Disruption. And how would you define that word, Mr. Gerald?
Disruption, well, it is the interrupting, stopping, the breaking apart of an action that was in place before so that it can't continue to its end.
Okay, I've got it. And an example here is a crisis would cause a tremendous disruption to our work schedule. So disruption is a noun, and in Georgian it means chashla rghveva. Okay, and the next word is backer. Backer is a noun, and in Georgian it means sponsori დამფინანსებელი. So how would you define that word, Mr. Durrell?
So a backer is someone who gives his financial support to something.
Yeah, for example, if I decide to start my own business, I think that I need to find a backer.
Yeah, someone who might contribute the capital funds for you to begin that business on a good footing.
Yeah, clear. So backer is a noun, and in Georgian it means sponsori დამფინანსებელი. And here is an example. We need financial backers for the project.
Our next word is a verb, to furlough. Furlough. And the meaning is not going to your job, usually temporarily, because your employer does not have work enough for you.
Okay, and I think that a lot of such things have happened recently.
Possibly,
in the companies because of this financial crisis, right? So to furlough is a verb, and in Georgian it means შვებულებაში გაშვება. To furlough, შვებულებაში გაშვება. And our example is, after safety concerns, the company furloughed all 4,000 of its employees.
Oof.
Okay, that's bad. Now the next word is redundant. Redundant is an adjective, and in Georgian it means სამუშაოდან დათხოვნილი, შემცირებული. I think that this is also quite common at the moment. Okay, a lot of companies make a lot of people, a lot of workers redundant. So can you give us English definition for the word?
Sure, it's when your company no longer needs you at all. So it's even worse than the furlough, the previous word. This time you're just let go from work because they have no use for you.
Yeah. So redundant is an adjective, and in Georgian it means სამუშაოდან დათხოვნილი, შემცირებული. To keep the company alive, half the workforce is being made redundant. Okay, sometimes it's necessary and managers have to do it, right? And I think that we have finished with the words, and it's time to move on to the text. But before we read the text, again, let's prepare for the text and discuss some questions, okay? Which businesses have been most vulnerable to the COVID-19 crisis? What do you think?
Well, I would say the tourism industry, particularly in Georgia, let's say, has been badly affected by the COVID-19 crisis.
And I think that tourism business and also catering business has also suffered a lot. Am I right?
Restaurants, hotels, anything connected to tourism.
Yeah, okay. And what do you think? Will COVID-19 crisis reshape business?
I think we'll have to because it's such a big shock to the economic system. Companies are going to have to change the way they do work, how they interact with each other, it's going to be tough.
And I think that it has also started this reshaping process, because a lot of companies have moved on to digital and online services, and I don't think that they are doing well at the moment, because I have had the cases when they cannot cope with this online work, but I think that they will do it better. Okay. Now let's start reading the text. From Switzerland's Watches and Wonders to Chile's Air and Space Show, from South Africa's Travel in Dabat to East China Import and Export Commodity Fair, trade shows worldwide have been scrapped or postponed. The losses to organizers and venues will be vast, and the disruption to exhibitors' plans extensive. Trade shows have been places where buyers, whether of passenger jets or hotel shampoo bottles, could compare wares, and sellers could smooth talk their potential customers in one noisy and exhausting place. COVID-19 has shut the exhibitions down. If and when it returns, will it be in a much changed or diminished form, just as people have discovered that they can conduct their meetings from their living rooms? Will buyers and sellers conclude that they too can do their business remotely? Okay, we talked about how businesses can reshape, so let's listen to Daryl now, and let's read the next part of the text.
Hugh Jones, Chief Executive of Reed Exhibitions, believes that striking up business relationships will always require face-to-face contact. But that doesn't mean that this crisis will not reshape the industry. As part of the RELX Business Information and Analytics Group, Reed Exhibitions has a more powerful backer than many of the smaller trade show companies. Exhibitions account for just 16% of RELX revenues, and Jones has not had to furlough or make any of his 4,500 staff redundant. They are continuing to organize conferences that have been postponed optimistically until after 2021.
So it means that RELX is quite fortunate. So it has a backer, it's a rich company, so it doesn't have to make people redundant. But now let's see what will happen in the next part of the text. Smaller exhibition organizers will not be so lucky. Even a company as large as Reed Exhibitions wasn't fully insured against this year's disaster. He won't speculate on what sort of industry consolidation will follow the crisis, saying only that his heart goes out to the smaller companies. But it seems likely that a post-coronavirus exhibitions industry will have fewer, bigger players. What sort of trade shows will they provide? Some have already gone digital, going ahead with video content streamed online instead. But that's hard to do with a fasteners and fixtures fair or a metal shows, where visitors need to see up close what they might be buying. Last year, only 4% of Reed Exhibitions revenues came from online presentations, though Jones says the company is also making efforts to use digital advances to improve real-world conferences.
So this text was about the difficulties that the smaller companies will face, and there are a lot of them, as you can see.
Yes.
Moving on, it has already been trialed and started using matchmaking technology that can tell visitors where to find an exhibitor that they may be interested in and what time they will be ready to have a meeting. Based on the visitors' meetings in previous years, it can also suggest who may want to catch up with this time. But using that technology implies that people will be ready to meet face-to-face once more. What if the COVID-19 crisis extends beyond 2020? What if it drags on for several years?
That's a good question, and I think the question everybody would like to get an answer to. So what if it continues, and how are we going to reshape our life, and how are the businesses going to reshape? Okay, kind of sad story, isn't it? But we have to check now how well we remember the text, right? Let's look at the first statement, and I think that we have to read the statements and identify whether the statements are true or false, right? Now let me try. Please read the statement and I will try to guess.
Okay. As a result of the coronavirus, trade shows around the world have been cancelled or postponed.
And I think that this is true. Yes, this is true, and this is true because trade shows worldwide have been scrapped and postponed. And scrapped meant to finish, right? As I remember.
To be disposed of, to be put away.
Yeah, okay. Well, our next statement, I will read the statement and you have to guess, right? The chief executive of Reed Exhibitions feels sorry for smaller trade show companies. Do you remember what the text said about it?
I remember a phrase, something like, heart goes out, and that usually means that you feel sorry for someone. So I'm going to say, yes, it's true.
And you are right, as always. We read in the text, he won't be drawn on what sort of industry consolidation will follow the crisis, saying only that his heart goes out to the smaller companies. So it means that he feels sorry for them.
He does.
Okay, now I will try.
All trade shows can be done effectively online.
I don't think that this is right, because we read that there are some special exhibitions which cannot be done online effectively, and this is false. And we read in the text, but that's hard to do with a fasteners and fixtures fair on a metals show where visitors need to see up close what they might be buying. Okay?
Well
they
done.
need to feel, they have to see what they are buying. So it's really difficult to do online. Okay.
Yes.
So we have been very successful with this exercise, and I think that it's time to move to grammar. And we have a sentence. Let's try to analyze the sentence. The companies have been trying to handle the crisis. Does this sentence mean that the companies are still trying to handle the crisis?
Yes, it does. They have been trying.
So does it mean that they started it in the past and are still doing it?
Yes.
Yes. So it means that today we are going to talk about present perfect continuous, which is usually used to talk about actions which started in the past and then are still going on till present, okay? But I think that Daryl will tell us more about the use of present perfect, okay?
Yes, the present perfect continuous, here are the uses for it. Actions continuing up to the present moment that were started in the past. Actions stopping just before the present moment, but close enough nonetheless.
And I think that the diagram we have also clearly demonstrates this process, right? And how do we form present perfect? We usually have, in the statements we have I, you, we, they. Then we need have plus been plus verb ing, okay? For example, I have been working. With third person singular, usually we have he, she, it has been working. And in negative form, we add not particle not to have, and we have I, you, we, they haven't been working. And with third person singular again, he, she, it hasn't been working, of course. And in questions, have goes in front of the subject. So we have I, have, then I, you, we, they been working. Or has he, she, it been working?
What a fantastic job to explain it.
Okay. Now, what about the examples, Mr.?
Yes, here are some examples. We have been working for hours. Can't we have a break soon? So they've been working quite a lot.
Yes, and they started in the morning maybe, and they have been working till afternoon, for example, so it's a long time.
And they want a break.
And they need a break.
Here's another example. I'm tired because I have been working since the morning.
So the result is in present, that the person is tired because she started working in the morning and has been working for a long time, and he has come to the result that he's tired. Okay, and yeah, do you remember the previous lesson we talked about stative verbs, the verbs which can never be used in continuous form? And we gave one example, it was see, but here we have the list of verbs which can never take ing form. These are mostly verbs which refer to thinking, existence, emotions, the human senses, appearance, possession and relationships between things. And one or two examples are, for example, believe, imagine, know, exist, hate, hear, appear, belong to, etc., etc., right? So you can see it on the screen.
It's a very useful list to have.
Yeah. And now it's time again to practice the grammar. Here we have sentences, and we have to put the given words in the correct form. I mean, put the sentence in the correct form, right?
Yes.
Okay.
How long you know Simon? What would you say, Ms. Tatya?
I would say, how long have you known Simon? I wouldn't say, how long have you been knowing Simon? Because know is a stative verb which can never take ing form. So I would say, how long have you known Simon? And here's the right answer.
Well done. You paid attention during the stative part.
Yeah. Okay. And the next sentence says, then we have a verb wait in brackets for 3 hours already. How would you say that sentence?
Well, it implies that they've been waiting for 3 hours and they're still kind of waiting. So I think the answer is clear. It's got to be, I have been waiting for 3 hours already.
And you're right. Okay, and the next statement is?
Iona is exhausted these days. She, and the verb is work, too hard recently.
Okay, we have a result in present that she's exhausted. And something happened before that. And we would say she has been working too hard recently.
Let's check.
And I'm right.
Well done. I never doubted you.
And the next one.
Here's the sentence. How long, and the verbs are you and be, the verb is be and the subject is you, a lawyer.
I would say the sentence like this. How long have you been a lawyer? And I'm right. And I think that we have come to the end of the lesson, and it's time to summarize the lesson, Mr. Darrell.
Yes, Ms. Tatya, we looked at vocabulary, which led us up to the text, the reading text, which was about the trade industry. And from there, we moved on to the grammar section, namely the present perfect continuous.
მოდით გაკვეთილი შევაჯამოთ. გაკვეთილის პირველ ნაწილში გავეცანით ახალ სიტყვებს, შემდეგ წავიკითხეთ ტექსტი, საინტერესო ტექსტი, რომელიც დღევანდელ სიტუაციას ძალიან შეესაბამებოდა და შემდეგ განვიხილეთ გრამატიკა. ჩვენი გრამატიკის თემა იყო აწმყო სრული განგრძობითი დრო. Now I think that we have come to the end of the lesson, but we shouldn't forget about the homework.
No, we shouldn't. And we've got a question for you. We'd like you to write a paragraph describing the best example of crisis management.
Okay, very interesting one. And where can students upload the homework?
To the website that they can see on the screen, and they would also find the model answer there.
Okay, very interesting. I would also write a good paragraph about it, especially as it's quite relevant for today's situation, right? Okay, unfortunately we have to finish our lesson today, but I think that we will meet our audience very soon. So let me tell you goodbye. Stay with us and keep on learning.
Until next time, goodbye.
Bye.